Okay, I'd like to show you how to make a photo montage combining two or more images, rather like these images from the True Detective series that's on HBO at the moment. Matthew McConaughey, Louisiana detective, atmospheric sort of effect. Um, which is interestingly enough quite a popular style at the moment. Matt Wisnowski and also Jasper James are popularising this silhouette with an image shining through. Um, Also, this demo will show you how to cut out challenging edges, textures like spiky hair, which is a very useful skill to be able to control. So we're going to do that first on Brad. We're going to use the polygon lasso tool, and I'm going to cut just slightly on the inside of Brad, only just a few millimeters. And when we get up to the hair, it's quite important you just keep to the solid hair masses. So even though there's quite a lot of spiky hair outside that has pink background shining through, we're just going to cut loosely on the inside of that. Shouldn't take too long. So with the polygon lasso tool, click and tap, click and tap. And when we're finished, we'll get marching ants. There we have it. And you'll also notice the feather was 0, but we've got the refine edge button, and that is what we're going to use to improve our selection, to refine the edge of the selection. So we click on that one, and we're taken to a screen which can give us different views of where we're seeing our refined edge. You can see he's looking quite chunky the way I've cut him out. If we look at overlay, you can see all the bits that I've missed. That's a mask overlay at the moment, and you can choose which way to see it. Now, if his hair was blonder, it might be better to actually see the edge on black, or if the background was darker, but in this instance I'm going to be viewing it in on white, and I'm not going to OK it yet because there's some more tools to look at. So now we're going to look at the edge detection, the way that this tool will help us. Excuse me. We're going to look at the radius. I'm going to slide the radius up to about 20, and you'll see straight away it's popped up and picked out more of the hair immediately. And then I'm going to click the smart radius, which will pick out a tiny bit more. Popped it up there. But the important magic happens when you select the drop down, the brush button. There are two options: erase, which is to take some edge away, and to refine, which is to add a little bit more. And that's the one we're going to use. And it's a brush tool, so I can make the brush bigger or smaller, like we do with the left and right bracket. And we just paint around, use the target to follow the edge and follow the edge of the hair, and it reminds us there are a few quite spiky bits that I missed because they were blended through onto the pink background. So keep working around, it's quite quick. I might have missed a bit of the neck, maybe a bit of the shoulder, I don't know. So now the magic happens when I let go, it will pick out and retain those hairs. Quite good magic. So the last thing that we do is output. We need to know how we're going to use this refined edge mask. So the selection is going to be output to layer mask. And we're going to OK that, and there we have it. We have Brad, and he's been masked out, so we can pick out all those fine hairs. And so to get the True Detective, sort of like the double exposure overlay effect, we need some images, and I'm going to blend Brad with some swamp images from Louisiana, and also with a power plant because it kind of suits the effect. So it's far too big. Command T that, press your Alt up arrow to shrink it down a little bit. Oopsie daisy, keep it. We can change the size of this later, but I just want to make it roughly right. So kind of like there's some nice, the bottoms of those trees are quite nice, and these ones here as well. Let's keep it roughly around there, will do. And then I've also got, oh, it's this one, isn't it? That's it, the industrial power plant. Command copy, back onto Brad, wherever he's gone, there he is. Paste. Again, far too big. Command T to transform, up arrow to keep the proportions. shrink and move, and roughly place. I don't know where we want him. I quite like that tall pylon, so let's go for there roughly for now. Okay, so you can see we've got Brad and the mask on the bottom and the two top layers. But what we need to do is we need to join these two layers to clip to the mask. Now what we're going to do is select the layer, but up right in the top corner there's this tiny little drop down menu which gives you many big important options, and we're going to create a clipping mask for both of those landscape layers. Clipping mask again, and then you can see, so they've clipped and they're sitting behind the outline of Brad. Which is what I want, but I want them to blend together. I want to see both of them through the silhouette. So on the top layer, I'm just going to make that a little bit see-through so I can see what's happening. And I don't like the fact that Brad's leaning and the tower isn't, so I'm going to Command T that again, hover on the outside and twist that so it kind of fits in with his leaning direction. Maybe move it a little bit, maybe slightly off, oh that's better, slightly off centre with more wires through there. That's good for me. And then on the bottom layer, I think I'll do the same. I'll spin those so that the tree stumps are also slightly fitting in and following that line of the tilted head going up and down. That will do. I can move that maybe a little bit more of the tree stump. Not too. That will do. Lovely. So take back up to here. Let's put that layer all the way back up to 100% opacity. And then I'm just going to use a mask. I'm going to add the mask to layer 2 and then painting in black, so with a paintbrush, a nice soft edge brush, that will probably be a good size. I'm going to start to paint over the power plant and allow some of the swamp trees to shine through. Now I'm going to deliberately make a mistake where I've gone a bit too far and I've rubbed out too much. You can see what I've rubbed out or I've erased. I'm going to swap the black and the white around, and then I can just actually paint back in my mistake. So that's quite nice. Maybe a little bit more of that power plant on that side. I quite like that industrial effect. Positioning, you can play with that forever. Okay, great. So now I'm going to sorry, I'd like to make this oh dear, make this more atmospheric with that sort of like monotone stylized effect. I'm going to go to an adjustment layer. I'm actually going to choose a gradient map. You could choose it here, or we could go image. Oh no, we can't now because we're onto adjustment layer. We've picked adjustment layer, so we'll just go here, a gradient map. It's picked those two colours because they were similar to the two colours in here. But I don't want that layer, although it's quite effective. I'd like something else. Now I've already added some extra choices to my drop down menu. I downloaded some old photo styles, which maybe we can show you and do that in class. And depending on which ones you choose, you get different effects. I quite like that one, a bit smoky-ish, but you could play with this forever. I think I'm going to go with that smoky one, not too dramatic, but I do want this sort of like warm and cold effect. So what you can do, when you click actually on the bar, I'll just cancel that. When you click directly on the bar, it shows you the light to dark gradient. And in the darker end, I'm going to change something. I'm going to tweak it. So I've clicked on this little panel, which is one of the selections of tones. And if I click in here again, I'm going to bring in a bit of blue. A deep blue, because I want it to match those darker colours. And so that's lovely, really nice. Picks out a little bit of magical toning there in the darker areas. I quite like that. I'm going to leave it just like that. So I'm happy with that. That's working. But the actual image also includes, I'll go back to my layers, also includes the actual face shining through. So I want to add that as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to duplicate the face layer. So I'm going to drag that down onto the multiply and push that right up to the top because I'm going to work with that layer. But what's happened, strangely, when this happens, it seems to unclip these other layers. They were clipped before and I want them clipped down. So I've got to go back and go up here and clip them again. I don't know why it does that, which is quite frustrating, but If it happens to you, we need to do that. And I'm going to also clip that gradient layer as well. But we're on to this one. And I think that's right. So what we're going to do, I would like to make him black and white. So, oh, I've just realised there's something I've missed. We need a background layer underneath here. Let's do that too. We need to add a layer. It's a totally plain layer. It's going to be underneath. Ordinarily, I would be putting it in as white, so I should have put that in as white to start off with. So he's white behind him. But then actually, when we go back up here, I'll probably change that white layer later. But first, back to the top layer, and I want him to be black and white. So we're going to go Image, Adjust, and we're going to go black and white. And I can play around with the presets, but I'll leave that one as it is. You can choose to make him more or less. There are some other things I want to do. I definitely want to make him darker because I know this will help the overlapping effect later. So I'm going to play around with the levels, the brightness, the darkness, the contrasts. So I'm going to go with levels. I'm going to push the dark tones quite deep. That's much better. I want some blacks. I want some proper blacks coming in here. And maybe just a little bit of a better highlight on his face. It kind of helps, maybe even a bit darker. Yeah. So we're going to go with that. Having the darker tones will help with the overlap later on. Okay, so there we are. We have him, but obviously we can't see the picture underneath. We want to see all these lovely landscapes. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at the blend mode, and we're going to try lighten. Pretty magic straight away. I quite like that. At lighten and screen, that's even better, I think, isn't it? You get more of the blue on that one. You can scroll through these and decide which ones you like. But I'm almost there now. Remember I said I was thinking about the background layer not being quite so white. So I'm going to use the picker tool and maybe pick a pale beige colour. And tip, so it's similar, so one of these super pale beige colours, and tip that in the background. That's actually just a little bit too similar. It's a bit too dark. So I'm taking that colour, but I'm going to go right up to the whitest version of it. That's better, a nice peachy cream colour, and tip that in. That's better. His hair pops out now and stands out more. I'm happy with that. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of texture into that background layer. So Command A, Command C, go back to Brad. And it's just going to sit above the background, so behind him. I'm going to paste that in. Command T it, and I'm actually going to cheat. I'm going to stretch it so that I can get as much smoke as I can around him. So I'm not keeping the proportions. That's good. A bit more there. So he has some smoke. I'm going to look at the blend mode of that, and I'm probably going to go down to luminosity, but you can try those out. So it brings the warmth back in, but obviously it's far too dark. It's going to be a very, very low opacity, sort of like even lower than that, maybe. Just so it's a 5. That'll do. Yeah, that's nice. A slight hint of a texture, just to sort of like stop the background being quite so plain. So we are combining a background, smoke, the face, and 2 different landscapes. You could be combining images into buildings, you could be landscapes, it can be anything, but this technique, using masks, using the refine edge to cut out the hair, thinking about gradients to help give you the effect that you're after. That's what I'm trying to show you, and I hope you can be able to use this to make a useful montage of your own.